I'm James,
And I'm Jay.
and welcome to the Open Shot Podcast. Alright guys, so here we are, episode 1.
Of the Open Shot, welcome.
So we're actually going to be going over
All of the teams.
all the NBA teams, A through Z. We're going to be discussing the rosters, where we think they might end up in the playoffs, or if they might go to the playoffs. We're going to go through their star players, off-season moves, just random things to see, just so we could give some insight on what we think the teams are going to perform.
Yeah, just kind of, predictions and what we like and what we don't like.
Yeah.
And, I know what you don't like.
So let's start off with the Atlanta Hawks. How do you feel about the Atlanta Hawks this season?
Honestly, man, when I look at Atlanta, I see a lot of Golden State, if that makes sense. In terms of just their blueprint, I see a lot of, the young core of Trae Young and just all of the additions that they had. Trae Young is going into year 2. I feel like he is going to come out guns blazing, bro. He ended the first, last season really freaking good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he did. He averaged 19.1 points and 8.1 assists last year, so that's a lot. What was he, first or second year player?
Oh, so it was his first year last year?
First year, yeah,
he was a rookie.
Just imagine averaging 20 and 9.
He was on the cusp of pretty much being rookie of the year. And I feel like Vince Carter, his last, season, I feel like that's going to be, a big impact on the young guys, and he's going to be a big presence in the locker room. And I feel like that's just going to, his growth and just everything that Vince is going to tell Trae is just going to be phenomenal.
One thing I noticed from the Hawks team is that they have a lot of former names. I feel like, for example, a lot of people from when we were in high school that were big. Evan Turner, Chandler Parsons. I remember Alex Len getting drafted, Jabari Parker getting drafted, Alan Crabb on the Trailblazers. That's a lot of former names where they're not performing as well as they used to, but they're still, there's still some reliable names in the league.
It's just a lot of veteran presence for the young guys, I feel like that's going to help them get to the not, necessarily championship contention. I don't see that happening, especially with, the power shift in the East and just the league in general. But I feel like just that's going to get him to the playoffs maybe, in a year or two from now. Maybe not now. This is going to be kind of a testing season. And then from here on out, it's going to be just, who knows?
I think just because since the East is so easy, I think they might be able to make the playoffs, but obviously, really fighting and going hard for that 8th spot or maybe that 7th seed.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, when I see the Atlanta Hawks, I just see kind of glimpses of that 2015 Warriors team. Because if you really think about it, when the Warriors went
pre-dynasty,
we didn't expect them to win the championship that year. Think about it. We didn't see that coming. And I feel like that's going to be one of the things with the Atlanta Hawks is that, they're just going to develop in silence, kind of I like to call it the Spurs effect. They're just kind of low-key, and then out of nowhere, they're going to just emerge into this contender. And, I feel like Golden State has really, built a blueprint, and I think most teams, like the Hawks, are going to just pick that up and, do that.
Let's see. They do have a good young core, so hopefully they develop well, and only time will tell.
Yeah, and honestly, man, Trae Young is just a sniper, man. That kid is sensational, and I just feel that team in that city, soon enough, it's just gonna be, who knows? Only time will tell.
So let's move on to the second team, the Boston Celtics. Now this is gonna be
okay. So I know I didn't really sound enthusiastic about the Atlanta Hawks. I don't really watch them, but Boston, man, especially everything that happened last year with Kyrie and just all that,
They lost Kyrie and Horford.
Bro, they got Kemba and they got Cantor. I really like Cantor. I don't know about you, bro.
I like Cantor too. I don't think Cantor can replace Horford.
No, of course.
Especially not playmaking wise, but that duo of Tatum and Kemba Walker, that's going to be a great duo this year.
And I just feel like, and also just kind of, Gordon Hayward, I feel like we've kind of forgotten about him. I mean, he's just kind of there, and especially with that nasty injury, he hasn't really been the Gordon Hayward that we've really been,
Gordon Hayward's getting paid $30 million a year, and it's a pretty bad contract because he actually went down and averaged 11.5 points last year with 3.4 assists and 4.5 rebounds. He needs to step it up. He does fill up the stat sheet. He gets 3 assists, 4 rebounds, 11 points, but it's just not enough, especially when you're getting paid $30 million a year.
No, and I get that, but I feel like every time a player goes down like that, I think about Paul George. I mean, think about it. That guy went down, and
True.
he was kind of inconsistent of what happened last year. He was an MVP candidate, so I kind of look at.
Do you think Gordon Hayward has that same potential?
I wouldn't say he's an MVP candidate. I wouldn't say he's that type of level, but I feel like he will get some step back, literally. But I feel like he's gonna improve off of last year and just kind of. I like Cantor, not like you said, he's not gonna replace Al Horford, but I feel like Cantor brings that grittiness too, and I feel like that fits well with the Celtics culture. That grittiness, you think about KD, you think about Paul Pierce, you think about Rondo. I feel like Cantor just fits that system very well. I mean, then again, we don't know yet, but Kemba Walker, I like me some Kemba Walker.
Also, a big thing that I read was that team chemistry was a big issue, especially with Kyrie Irving being the leader. Now maybe with Irving gone, Kemba Walker coming in, that'll help a lot of that'll help the team a lot, and maybe they can. I mean, they did great last year anyway. They did a good job, but hopefully that team chemistry will kind of put them over the edge more and maybe be more of a contender.
Yeah, and I feel like, Kemba isn't really as a diva like Kyrie.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So I mean, I feel like that's gonna be a significant change in the locker room, and they also lost Terry Rozier as well, but Tatum, he still has a lot to improve.
Yeah,
So
he's
does
young.
Jaylen Brown as well. I like Jaylen Brown. Kind of a disappointing second year, if I must say so myself, because
Yeah, he didn't perform as well.
looking back at that that run against the Cavs and took them to 7, that was just that.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that, bro. I remember watching that shit, and I was surprised that some rookies took LeBron to 7 games.
Yeah.
But I'm not really too worried about their second year going into their third year. I was a bit disappointed, but that change in scenery for this team is going to be something big, I think.
And so we both agree they're going to make the playoffs this year, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I mean, it's Boston. They're just not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And Brad Stevens, I feel like he's a phenomenal coach. He's one of my favorite coaches in the league, and I just feel like this is one of those things where it's a fresh start. And I've been seeing some things that a lot of people are doubting the Celtics, but to be quite honest with you, I feel like that Celtics culture, it's something that you just can't doubt.
For sure.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and being a Heat fan, you know.
We know. So let's move on to the next team, the Brooklyn Nets. So speaking of the Celtics, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and DeAndre Jordan all joined the Brooklyn Nets this summer, which nobody thought was going to happen. I mean, I even thought that as much as I hate how, Knicks and Lakers fans always think that the best free agents are going to go to their team.
Yeah, I mean the delusional fans?
Yeah. But, I mean, the Nets fans were quiet, and, I mean, I did see a lot of hype for them, to join them, but I'm really surprised that they joined, and I love DeAndre Jordan. I mean, DeAndre Jordan in Lob City with Blake Griffin and CP3, that was my favorite era, obviously, when we were in high school, and his athleticism, he's averaged a double-double for the past 6 years, and he's one of the league's most athletic centers and rebounders. Obviously, offensively, he's not there, but you don't need offense when you have KD and Irving. But this year, with KD out, it's going to be rough for the Nets.
I wouldn't,
Maybe not rough, but,
I wouldn't really call it rough. I just feel like it's going to be kind of like, they're just going to put their feet into some water. They did really well last year. They surprised me, with D'Angelo Russell and all that.
Under the radar.
They were really under the radar. But honestly, that just I caught some Nets games last year, and just their bench, bro. Their bench is really good.
Yeah.
And they added Prince as well from the Clippers, I believe.
Yeah.
Tayshaun Prince.
I think so.
Yeah, I believe he's from the Clippers.
Let's double check that.
Yeah, but honestly, man, looking at the Nets, I'm really excited for this team, and KD is a big factor, and people are saying that what if KD doesn't come back?
He's gonna come back. It's Kevin Durant.
It's Kevin Durant, man.
He's from the Timberwolves last year. Actually, Tayshaun Prince is on the Grizzlies now.
Is he?
Yeah.
I don't know who I'm talking about.
But yeah, with KD, I mean, it's gonna be rough coming back from tearing your Achilles.
Yeah.
But I mean, like you said earlier, the Nets last year were 42-40. They made it over 500 just barely. But I mean, D'Angelo Russell, and you're changing him with Kyrie Irving. You add arguably the best player in the league, Kevin Durant. All you have to argue with him about is Giannis Antetokounmpo and Kawhi Leonard, all those types of people. But I mean, it's Kevin Durant.
Yeah, and also another thing that people are kind of giving Kyrie this, this dirty look in terms of how he's been these past couple of years, but he got to choose where he wanted to go. He went home.
Exactly, yeah.
So I feel like that's gonna be something really big, and I'm actually quite excited. I mean, he's gonna put on a show in the Barclays Center this year, and I'm really excited to see that. And when KD comes back, Jesus.
And even Levert has a lot of potential on the team, and especially with Irving on the team and KD coming back next year, they're gonna take a lot of the offensive responsibility, obviously, and maybe Levert can, obviously bloom into a great player. And I mean, having those two stars in your team is
Yeah.
gonna help, especially development wise.
Now the question that I have for Kyrie is like, do you think he's gonna go back to that killer that we saw in Cleveland his first couple of
For
years?
sure, I think so.
You think so? I honestly think so, but it's just kind of like I don't know if the scrutiny that he's been getting and just kind of like him playing in these places that it seems like he didn't want to be in. I feel like that's taken a bit of a toll on him, but I feel like I've been looking at interviews with this guy and he just looks happy to be in Brooklyn. So I feel like he's gonna put on a show this season, and I absolutely can't wait. I feel like he's been good, but he just hasn't been himself. I've been looking at him and it's like it's Kyrie Irving, but it's not Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
So, and he's back home, so that's gonna be huge.
I mean, I think for sure, I think chemistry wise and just play style wise, Kyrie Irving has proven that he can play next to a star small forward playing with LeBron, and Kevin Durant has proved that he could play with a star point guard playing with Westbrook. So I mean, I think just having them two together,
And Steph Curry.
and Steph Curry, yeah.
Sure.
So it's just I think the play wise it's gonna mesh really well, and I'm really excited. I really want kind of like a mini Lob City Part 2. I want Kyrie Irving to throw lobs up to DeAndre Jordan. I want to see him more on like some more pick and rolls and doing just attacking the rim. And I think the Nets are obviously gonna. I think the Nets are gonna make the playoffs. I think this year they might be again like maybe like in the low playoffs, 8 to 6 seed. I don't know if all that chemistry and everything will have an upside early. But I think once KD comes back and then everything gets like more relaxed, I think that's good. They're gonna have a better chance then, and then maybe make a deeper playoff run.
No, for sure. I mean, like I said, this season is gonna be more like putting the feet into some murky waters, but I feel like they're gonna be, they're gonna be fine.
For sure. So let's go on to the next team, which may be arguably one of the worst teams in the league and maybe had one of the worst off seasons, the Charlotte Hornets. So the Charlotte Hornets obviously lost Kemba Walker, but they got Terry Rozier, who's, in my opinion, trash. I mean, he averaged 9 points, 3.9 rebounds, and 2.9 assists on 38.7%. And he has a 3-year, $56 million contract. I mean, you're going to give up, how much is that? That's almost $19 million a year. And you're replacing Kemba Walker with him. I just think, like, that was just a bad move.
I mean, I have some sort of love for Terry Rozier, especially, with the whole scary Terry thing against the Bucks. I kind of have respect for him. He's a fun player to watch. He's not Kemba Walker per se, but I feel like maybe this can be some sort of effect where he this is pretty much his team now. Who else can you really say Charlotte belongs to besides, the fans?
I guess, yeah.
So you never know. I mean, then again, did we ever think James Harden was gonna be James Harden when he left OKC? No. So not saying that.
Well, James Harden played a lot better when
Yeah,
on
true.
his first team in the Thunder.
That's true. But you never know. I kind of like to see things for face value, and this is a new start. Whenever a new player goes to a new team, that's kind of just a clean slate in a sense, and maybe he could develop, maybe he won't. So I have some sort of optimism. I feel bad for them, but I do have some sort of respect for Rozier.
And I mean, they still have Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, who hasn't really proven to be of any worth, especially like all of his years there. He's a decent role player, but I mean, even on the team, they have Bismack Biyombo and Nicholas Batum. I remember Nicholas Batum being, a really great force on the Trailblazers years back, and I just don't think he's at that level anymore. But I mean, I don't have much to say about the Hornets. I don't think they're gonna make the playoffs. I think they're gonna probably be in the bottom of the East. But I don't know. We'll see. Only time could tell.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, kind of like what you said. I'm going, I'm watching this team with a bit of optimism, but I don't really have high hopes that they're going to make the playoffs. It's just kind of one of those things where they're in rebuild mode, and I feel like, with the next team, I could say the same thing. with the Chicago Bulls.
Ooh, so with the Chicago Bulls, I mean, I love Zach LaVine. I mean, he's a dunk champion and he's super athletic. Even though he got injured and he was out for a while, I still think I think this year he's gonna have a great comeback season. Even though last year like the Bulls play a lot on the post, but if they just change the system up a little bit, I think he could get more usage. And then even with Chris Dunn, he had a great year, but I just think that the Bulls have just way too many people at point guard position. But I don't know. He's a really good defender, but his offense isn't there. So we just have to see kind of what route they go with. And even with Markkanen, I mean, Markkanen had last year in February he averaged 26 and 12. That's amazing. I mean, that's literally. I mean, who else does that? Not very many people.
Yeah, exactly.
26 points and 12 rebounds, and he's a really young player. So I think if he can bring it up, or maybe obviously he's not gonna play at 26-12 the entire season, but if he can do maybe 22-10, 19-9, something like that, it'll be a really good addition to. It'll be a really good performance for him and input for the team.
Yeah, yeah, and also, I'm gonna keep an eye on the Bulls because I kind of like their rookie Kobe White. I've been kind of I watched some highlights of him, in summer league, and he looks like he has a lot of potential. Not my favorite player, but who knows? We go into like the season and we see these rookies in summer league and they play decent, but then again, what do the Chicago Bulls really have to lose at this point? It's a really weird place, man.
Yeah. So speaking of weird, let's go from a team that went from being one of the best teams to one of the worst teams to the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Well, I mean, they got your boy Kevin Love, and I know
I
how
love
much you
Kevin
love
Love.
some Kevin Love.
I love Kevin Love.
And honestly, I actually like Colin Sexton. He's a stud. It's unfortunate that he's on the Cavs, so
Yeah.
we're not really going to hear much of him. But
And I think maybe at the point guard position, they may be really small of a backcourt. I mean, they have Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, Dellavedova, Brandon Knight, but they do have some height on them, but I just don't think that backcourt can really perform that well or maybe output that much. I mean, Brandon Knight, I mean, every time I think of Brandon Knight, I literally think of that dunk from DeAndre Jordan where he just murked him. So like, and he was on the Suns that year, and he was pretty inconsistent that year. Also, I remember like a lot of people were saying he was trash, and then he had a good and then he had a couple good games or a couple good months or streaks or whatever. But I don't know. I mean, and the Cavaliers also have Nance and Thompson, which make great role players for the front court. And one thing I noticed is that the Cavaliers have Kevin Love, John Henson, Tristan Thompson, and Larry Nance. That's a pretty steady, front court in terms of, um, you know, starters and backups. I mean, if you start, let's say Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love, you have John Henson and Larry Nance in the backup. I mean, that'll be really good in the playoffs.
yeah, but they're not making the playoffs.
True, that's true.
It's Cleveland, bro.
If they make it, which they probably won't, that's true.
So yeah, I mean, it's just like one of those things where they won a championship. It's kind of like what this reminds me of is kind of like, well, not even, because even Dallas is still better than the Cavs, but it's like they won a championship and they're back to rock bottom for God knows how long.
True.
And ironically, the Dallas Mavericks are up next.
So the Dallas Mavericks.
Now, okay, I gotta say something. I'm really excited to see this team this season.
Me too.
Because I feel like we haven't seen Porzingis in a very long time. I feel like it's been a lot longer than it really has been. And
Can he stay healthy though? That's the thing.
that's the thing. But I feel like he can be. The sky's the limit with this guy. But Luka Doncic is just.
And one thing I love is just like the poetry behind it, that the Dallas Mavericks in Dirk Nowitzki's last year and in Luka Doncic's first year, it's just you have obviously one of the most famous international players with Dirk Nowitzki, and then they draft Luka Doncic, who is another international star. He's been playing professionally since he was 16 years old. So, I mean, obviously last year was his first year in the NBA, but just having two international stars with Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic on the Mavericks after Dirk Nowitzki leaves, I think that's just awesome poetry, and like that's just like an amazing, I think chemistry and kind of feel for the NBA where it's like you have these international players that are just going to continue the legacy of one of the best international players, especially even in the same positions.
Yeah.
I mean, Luka Doncic is a forward and Kristaps Porzingis is a stretch four and can play center, but just like Dirk Nowitzki. But I think it's going to be. I really like that aspect of it.
Yeah, and honestly, if Porzingis can stay healthy, it's gonna be dangerous, man. That's just gonna be, like you said, poetry in motion. I could just see it already. I could see just Doncic just passing it to Porzingis and vice versa, and they're just gonna wreak havoc. And I feel like that's gonna bring a lot of just culture to the Dallas Mavericks that I feel like they've missed out on. And Porzingis, I feel like we've forgotten about him, and he's just gonna surprise people. I just have this weird feeling he's gonna do that.
I mean, they also have they don't have a very deep team, but I mean they have Tim Hardaway Jr., who's a 3-point threat. They have Dwight Powell, Seth Curry, and JJ Barea. JJ Barea, obviously, he's not like an amazing player, but I mean he is a vet. He has a lot of experience, and I'm not sure, and I'm pretty sure he was on the Dallas Mavericks team, right? He was on the Mavericks before in 2010.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So like, so I mean he has playoff experience, championship experience, and Seth Curry can be a big part of the offense. I mean he shot 45% from three and from the field. I mean 45% from the field is a good shooter, and 45% from the three is an amazing shooter. He's one of the best 3-point shooters in the league, and he's not even Stephen Curry. He's his brother.
Yeah.
So I mean that's a really good a good person to have on the team.
It's all in DNA, baby. It's that Curry DNA.
It just runs in the family.
So okay. So I gotta shout out Joseph, bro. Denver Nuggets.
Our boy Joseph of the Denver Nuggets. So the Denver Nuggets, I mean, they already have a dominant young core, and then they added Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant averaged 13.6 points, 49.7% from the field, and 39.2% from three-pointer, while also getting 5.2 rebounds. That's almost 50-40 in terms of shooting, which is amazing. And I also think that I also think that with Jokic, Will Barton, Paul Millsap, Zeller, Plumlee, and Murray, that's a deep ass team, and that they're going to be amazing.
I feel like that was one of my sleeper teams of last season. I mean, I did not expect.
They're not sleeper anymore. Everyone knows the hype.
No, but I don't feel like I just didn't see this coming from this team last season. But this season, I expect great things from them. But then again, the West did get stacked. So that's going to be, a challenge for them. But I feel like they've proven to the league that they are a contender. And yeah, I feel like they're gonna for the years to come, they're gonna be one of those teams where it's like, okay, yeah, you have to respect us now.
And Jokic even averaged 20 points, 10.8 rebounds, and 7.3 assists, and he's a center. He averaged 7 assists a game as a center. So that's like
Whiteside versus Jokic and those Trailblazers and Nuggets rivalry. That's another thing that I'm looking forward to is against those two teams. It's just they just
more classic basketball, like big man.
Thank God.
Yeah.
But that it's just one of those teams where I'm really excited to see, man.
So speaking of big men, let's go down to Detroit for the Detroit Pistons. So Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond. Can Blake Griffin keep up with his great shooting? He had his best 3-point season last year, and he was taking about 7 3-pointers a game. Blake Griffin. I mean, we know Blake Griffin as, obviously, like I said before, Lob City Blake Griffin, athletic dunker, and a lot of people thought he was just a washed-up dunker, just athletic, but, I mean, he's built up his shot a lot over the past couple of years, and he's proven to be reliable from the mid-range and pretty good from the 3-point range. I mean, he shot 36% from 3, and he's a power forward.
Yeah, and honestly, Blake Griffin earned my respect last year in the playoffs when, I mean, they were getting absolutely destroyed by Milwaukee, and he went out with a fight, even, with injury and all that. So I feel like he has a chip on his shoulder, his own personal vendetta, and I feel like that's going to carry into the season. And not to mention, they have Joe Johnson now, and Derrick Rose.
Yeah.
So that they added those two guys. Do I feel like they're going to make the playoffs? Maybe low playoffs, who knows? But they're just one of those teams. I mean, again, it's a weird thing that a lot of great things happen in the league over the summer. A lot of power shifts and a lot of, teams got, stronger, but at the same time, there's a lot of question marks in terms of just like, okay, well, can this team compete as well? So I feel like Detroit is in the middle of like they can, but we'll see. We'll have to see in terms of like injuries and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, they also have Reggie Jackson, who's a good player also, but I mean, who's gonna start, Reggie Jackson or Derrick Rose?
That's
Who
true.
do you think?
I honestly would prefer Reggie Jackson just
Have
to
Derrick
kind of
Rose kind of be like a six man?
yeah, because I would want to keep his legs fresh. You know, I wouldn't I just wouldn't want to risk him getting injured.
And I think Derrick Rose really needs to add more of a shot to his game. When did he tear his ACL? Years ago, man.
Yeah.
Like really long time ago, and he's still playing mainly driving in. He's just more cautious and more careful, but I mean, you really have to. He has developed some sort of a shot, but he needs to just keep building on that if he wants to really stay as a relevant point guard in the league. But but I guess also talking about shooting, let's go down to the next team, the Golden State Warriors.
Now this team, okay, so I'm just gonna say it right here. I still think they're a threat in the West, regardless of what they've lost, regardless of Klay Thompson going down. It's gonna be one of those things where in the regular season they're gonna struggle, but you don't want to meet them in the playoffs at
For
all.
sure.
You don't want to meet them in the playoffs. They have just an amazing coach in Steve Kerr, and I'm not, I'm not the biggest fan of the Warriors. I wasn't really watching them that much. I kind of didn't like them. I'll be very honest with you, but I will give credit where credit is due, and I feel like this team is scary. And if Klay Thompson comes back for the playoffs, and they got D'Angelo Russell, if they still keep him by the end of the season, who knows what they're gonna do with him?
I think they will.
Yeah, I think so too. I think just the chemistry that he's already building with the team. I just feel like that's a good sign. But I think their biggest issue is their strengths at the center position. I feel like they're kind of lacking in that right now. They lost Kevin Durant. They lost, just so much.
Not JaVale McGee anymore.
Yeah, but they did add Cauley Stein. I haven't really watched him too much, but I mean,
I liked Cauley Stein when he was a rookie. I mean, he did come in he was drafted by the Kings, and he did come in as backup to DeMarcus Cousins,
yeah,
which also the Warriors don't have anymore either. But even though he did perform well last year, but it's still like a big loss for them on the end of in terms of like height and strength. But I liked Cauley Stein as a rookie, but again, he's not a sure, you know, game changer.
yeah, and honestly, like I said, if they're gonna struggle for sure without Klay Thompson, I feel like they can end maybe top 5 in the West. I just feel like they just have built this culture, this championship culture with Steve Kerr, and I feel like that just doesn't go away. Um, but if you meet them in the playoffs, it's not gonna be easy. It's Golden
sure.
State after
Yeah.
all. So
So the next team, the Houston Rockets, who pretty much had one of the biggest off seasons. I mean, they acquired Russell Westbrook. They have two former MVPs on their team and two former teammates, Russell Westbrook and James Harden, who are best friends. But let's see. I mean, do you think that they can share the ball well and play good together?
I mean, that's still to be seen. I've seen some. I mean, I don't really like using as preseason as kind of like insight because it's preseason at the end
Yeah.
of the day. But weirdly enough, I feel like Russell Westbrook respects Harden enough to kind of, share the ball with him. It was kind of different. I mean, you kind of saw that last year with Paul George. He kind of let Paul George do his thing, but at the end of the day, this is one of his best friends. I feel like that's just gonna add to the chemistry, and they kind of know how to play with each other. They were teammates at one point.
Yeah.
Um, but they also did add Tyson Chandler as a veteran big as a backup, and they pretty much have the same roster as last year,
Yeah,
except
I mean, they have a really scary deep team. The Rockets have Ryan Anderson, who's a stretch four, who's a great stretch four. Clint Capella, obviously, who he averaged 16.6 points, 12.7 rebounds, and 1.5 blocks, which is amazing. I mean, I honestly think that Westbrook, Harden, and maybe with Clint Capella, that's maybe like a baby big three. Just if Clint Capella can maybe boost up his stats a little bit more, that's a great big three. They also have Tyson Chandler, like you said. He's going to be a great motivation for Clint Capella, great veteran, great way to develop him more. And they have Eric Gordon, Gerald Green, Ben McLemore, Thabo Cephalosha, and PJ Tucker.
I can't believe you forgot Anthony Bennett, bro.
Bro, and dude, I don't even know. He's probably not even gonna make it to the regular season. He's probably not even gonna make it to the actual like the final cut.
No, but all jokes aside, I honestly think this is gonna be one of the teams I'm gonna keep my eye on. Because I like Russell Westbrook, I like James Harden. I was a bit disappointed with them. What happened with them in the playoffs? They kind of just threw those games away with KD going down. I honestly thought they would take advantage and capitalize against the Warriors, but this is a fresh start. It's kind of every time I believe in the Rockets, something always happens. But Golden State is no more, but they do have to worry about other teams in the West now. It's not just Golden State. But they're gonna be an exciting team to watch for sure, and I feel like they could do some big things this season.
One thing that worries me about Westbrook is that can he stay playing at that insane speed? Like just, I mean, he always has the ball, but can he stay driving to the basket almost every single time? Can he still play like jumping in the air like that, playing almost like Westbrook did, where he was just insanely explosive, going to the basket, dunking, doing everything hard, laying up, and just putting his body on the line? I think that may be a big factor in maybe his progression where he might get hurt. I'm pretty scared of that.
Um, I'm a bit worried about that too, but I feel like being with James Harden and just being, I feel like he's like I said earlier, he's gonna respect Harden enough to kind of let Harden do his thing, and if Russell Westbrook can develop a more consistent shot. And I feel like with Russell Westbrook, he just kind of has this really, he rushes his jump shots, and it's just really bad.
Yeah.
But I feel like now, if he's in a good spot with Harden, I feel like he can, develop something good. And who knows?
Yeah, and I mean, especially with Westbrook there, I think that's gonna really push Clint Capella stat wise, cause with all those missed shots, someone needs to get those offensive rebounds.
For sure.
So let's go on to the next team, the Indiana Pacers. So the Indiana Pacers this offseason, they got T.J. Warren, Jeremy Lamb, and Malcolm Brogdon, who was a stud in the Milwaukee Bucks.
Honestly, this kind of reminds me of another team, but in the West. And if you know what team I'm talking about, very similar in terms of just adding these pieces. Not big names by any means, but they did add depth to their team.
For sure.
And with Victor Oladipo coming back from injury, that is scary.
And we don't even know when he's gonna come back.
Exactly. But even then, I feel like now they're kind of, they're in a spot where they can keep momentum going, and then when Oladipo does come back, that's gonna be a team that's just scary. And I feel like it kind of has glimpses of the 2013 Pacers. No Paul George, no Hibbert, but they're kind of going back to form, and I feel like they're going back to that. They're gonna go back to that gritty style of play, and yeah, I just feel like they're on the right track to being a contender again, and I'm really excited. I'm really happy for the city of Indiana. They deserve it, man.
I mean, yeah, for sure. They also have Turner, McDermott, T.J. McConnell, and Sabonis. So they're a great young core. And I think they have a lot of potential. So I don't know. I mean, that's also time will tell. But I think they're gonna have a good year this year. I think they're gonna make the playoffs. So let's see if they can really capitalize.
So we can talk about the next team,
You want to introduce them?
the LA Clippers. Man, okay, so we talked now. Obviously, if our listeners or our viewers are listening, they know that we both love the Lob City era, and I feel like this era of Clippers basketball is going to be absolutely insane with
Sure.
Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and just kind of that grittiness of Patrick Beverly, Lou Williams. Just this team is going to be insane, absolutely insane. I will say this. I feel like I feel like they are gonna struggle at the beginning of the season. I feel like there's gonna be some load management on Kawhi. Just to kind of keep him, up to par for playoff time. And obviously Paul George is gonna miss some time as well. But I love me some Doc Rivers, and I feel like just that team is gonna be crazy defensively.
For sure. And I mean, just imagine like their death defense lineup can consist of Patrick Beverly, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Lou Will as a scoring option, not defensively, but as a scoring option. I think that's a really good lineup, and then you could put in whoever you want at center. It doesn't matter. But I mean, if you can have maybe Patrick Beverly at the one, Lou Will at the two, and PG and Kawhi either playing 3 and 4, you have a center in there. Maybe with Montrezl Harrell, who's a great center and a rebounder. That's going to be a really scary lineup.
Yeah. And now the question I have for them is like, are they going to take the approach of kind of like they're gonna kind of coast and well, I wouldn't say coast considering that the West is kind of scary this year. Well, it always is, but this year significantly. Do you think they're gonna kind of not go too hard at the beginning of the season and kind of push towards the end, or do you think they're just gonna play hard the entire 30 of the year?
I think like especially in the West, because I think if you think about the West, the Rockets, Clippers, and Lakers, they all got, new people in the team. They're revamped. I think they're obviously going to have some struggle in the beginning, just chemistry-wise and play-style-wise. It happens with every team. Just like, I mean, look at our team. Look at the Miami Heat when we got LeBron. We started off really slow. We still made it to the finals, but we lost anyway. So I think there's going to be a really slow progression, but nothing that's going to keep them from the playoff hunt, obviously. And I don't think for the Clippers, it's going to keep them anywhere far away from the Western Conference Finals either. I think they're still one of the top contenders to be there.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. Kawhi Leonard is just proving to be one of the greatest players to ever play the game. He literally came off a championship his first year, and going to the Clippers and just going to an organization, going back home, again with the same kind of thing with Kyrie, he went back home, and that's gonna play a huge factor. And I feel like he is gonna be an absolute monster, and I'm excited. I'm really, really excited for the season.
I mean, me too, and especially with Shamit and Montrezl Harrell, those are great two people to have. But I don't know. Like then again, only time will tell. But I mean, they're the Clippers, and with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, I'll never put anything past them.
They even have the boy Rodney McGruder on there.
Rodney McGruder.
Shooter.
He is.
So they even have him. So yeah, I'm excited to see what this team has in store this season. But let's go on to the next team. Their friendly neighborhood Los Angeles Lakers. So what do you got to say about them, man?
I mean, I think the Los Angeles Lakers' best addition this offseason was Dwight Howard. No, I'm just fucking with you. But I mean, Anthony Davis, bro. LeBron James and Anthony Davis. That's obvious. That's an NBA 2K My Team lineup.
Pretty much, man. And I feel like this is the first. I mean, if you really think about it, this is the first season where LeBron doesn't really have to really question his team. He doesn't really have to be stressed out. They got a great lineup. Like you said, it's pretty much a fantasy lineup.
I mean, Rajon Rondo, Dwight Howard, who obviously isn't the same Dwight Howard he was in the Orlando Magic, but I mean, it's still Dwight Howard. And just having Danny Green and Avery Bradley on there.
Yo, Danny Green was a big pickup.
For sure. And I'm a huge fan of Avery Bradley also. Even when he was on the Celtics, he was a great offensive player and defense, and even more of a great defensive player, which I think is definitely going to take a lot of load off of LeBron. And especially with adding AD and having that obviously superstar mega talent next to him, he's arguably the best player to ever play alongside LeBron James. I mean, obviously he played with Dwayne Wade, but I mean, if you compare Anthony Davis and Dwayne Wade, obviously, you have a stretch, pretty much a brand new stretch four, and then you have Dwayne Wade who's a shooting guard, but I mean, it's still a great addition.
I just feel like the Lakers this season, look, I know how people feel about LeBron, and people tend to say, oh, whatever, all these things, but this is I mean, we've heard this a million times before this past, off season, that this is the first time in a long time that he's gotten rest. But not only LeBron, but Anthony Davis, he sat out pretty much the entire second half of the season, almost. And I feel like they're just gonna come out and just demolish teams. And I don't feel like the league knows that. I mean, obviously they're gonna be a good team, but they're gonna make a statement They're gonna make a big statement, and for sure, I wouldn't be surprised if they end up in the Western Conference Finals alongside with the Clippers. I honestly believe that, and that would be just
Insane.
yeah,
That's gonna be a great series.
yeah,
And they're playing in the season opener,
yeah.
which is even better. So let's go down to the next team, the Memphis Grizzlies. So with the Memphis Grizzlies, they did lose Mike Conley
Which is big, and they lost Marc Gasol
last season, and I mean they have Andre Iguodala, but he doesn't want to be there. They already have an agreement where he's not gonna show up to training camp, and I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know if they're gonna buy him out. I don't know if they're gonna trade him, but I mean, it is what it is. But they still have Tyus Jones, Solomon Hill, Jonas Valanciunas, Plumlee, and Morant, those are big names and really good players. And I think that even with Jaren Jackson, he didn't play much last year, but he's super young. He has a lot of potential. We just have to see how good Jackson Jr. and Morant can be. I think they're going to be a very scary duo together, but that also depends on how well they both progress.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have big expectations for the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm excited to see their rookie, but it's just kind of like one of those things where it's kind of like, okay, rebuild,
Yeah,
one of those things.
They're in rebuild mode, but I mean they're in a great position for rebuild mode.
No, for sure, absolutely, and that's just one of those things where, as time goes on, they're just gonna be one of those teams where I see this team being the next Denver Nuggets, like how they just kind of came out of nowhere. That's gonna be them, but I would say maybe 2 to 3 years from now. Who knows?
Yeah. So the next team, our home city, the 305, the Miami Heat.
I'm excited, bro.
Me too. I mean, we finally got Jimmy Butler. I mean, I wanted Jimmy Butler in the Heat even when we hated the Bulls.
Yeah, and like Jimmy said, he would never wear Heat jersey, but look at him now.
Look at him now. He's
Jimmy, what's up?
But I mean, just other than Jimmy Butler, I mean, obviously, the Miami Heat were a great defensive team last year. They finished in the top half. They were number 17 ranked amongst the teams, and now they just added Jimmy Butler, who's an amazing defensive player. We don't have to worry about filling up the 2 spot anymore. Obviously, like, we didn't have to worry about that last year because we had Dwayne Wade. He was on his farewell tour. I love you, Dwayne Wade.
Yeah, me too, man.
But I mean, now we have Jimmy Butler. He is a little bit older. He is a little bit on the older side, but I mean, we still have him for the next couple of years, which is going to be great talent for us.
Yeah, and it's Tyler Hero, bro. That kid.
Walking bucket. Stud. Younger than us. I don't care.
Damn it. But honestly, this is one of I feel like it's a great time for Heat basketball. And I feel like, just bias aside, I feel like Jimmy is gonna do so much for the locker room. I mean, I've seen videos of this guy in practice with
cursing teammates, like blocking them,
cursing college students and whatnot.
Yeah.
But man, like Jimmy, I feel like this is like I wouldn't want to say this is where he belongs, but I feel like it feels right. And Bam Adebayo, we still got Dion Waiters, we still got Winslow. Just
point guard.
This is gonna be one of those seasons where it's gonna be really exciting for Miami. And I feel like Jimmy Butler is going to be an all-star this season, without a doubt. He's going to be an all-star, and he's just going to lead us back into the playoffs. And I'm excited, man. I'm really, really excited.
One thing that does worry me is that one thing I've wanted for the Heat for a long time is that they play faster pace. Now they have, they were playing a really slow pace when they had LeBron and Chris Bosh and Wade, and at that time, obviously, Wade was old, and even obviously after that, he didn't play as fast anymore. Chris Bosh wasn't a super athletic power forward, but now with a super young team of Hero, Waiters, Butler, Winslow, Bam, I want to see if Goran Dragic can keep up with the faster pace. I know he can play a fast pace, but he is on the older side, and I just want to see if he can become that real 100% true playmaking point guard that we need.
Yeah.
That's not his play style. He is not a 100% true playmaker, but I think that's what the Heat need. But let's just see. I don't know if he's gonna still be on the Heat by the end of the season.
Yeah.
I think they might dump his contract and trade him away for I don't know what. But I think I don't know. I think that Goran Dragic really needs to step it up also, especially with Justice Winslow, playing point guard a lot. He's proving to be a great defensive pressure. He's adding a 3-point shot, and he's proving to be a great playmaker. So I think that maybe Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra might be comfortable with trading away Dragic and maybe having Justice Winslow becoming the starter or playing a lot more minutes in the point guard position where his contract just ends up being irrelevant.
Yeah, and I guess like to touch up on worries that I have for the Heat. I guess one of the worries that I have is, I mean, if you've seen Heat basketball, this is kind of, common. When they have a big ass lead, and then somewhere in the third quarter, as we like to call it, they just kind of they don't keep up the pace and they just kind of lose the game. But that's what adding Jimmy brings. I feel like there's could be more stability, and that's something that I hope that that bad habit that they have, this keep leads, man. Like that's just one thing that stresses me out when I watch Heat basketball.
So let's move on to last year's MVP's team, the Milwaukee Bucks. So, the Milwaukee Bucks, MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo, this offseason he said that he thinks he's only playing at 60% of his potential.
I believe it.
That's insane. I mean, I believe it too. I mean, he's an amazing player and he doesn't even have a 3-point shot.
And he's like really young.
Super young. I mean, how old is Giannis Antetokounmpo?
I believe he's 24.
24?
If I'm not mistaken, I believe he's 24.
And I mean, Giannis Antetokounmpo, he if he could just develop more of a mid-range game, he did get a little bit of that last year, but if he could develop even more of a mid-range game and get more of a 3-point shot, he's going to be MVP again, no doubt. And also, I think that he needs that because a lot of people know that he's going to attack the rim all the time, and they're just going to lock it down. So I think, especially maybe obviously, I think the Bucks can make a really deep playoff run, and I think they could even make it to the finals. Especially if they make it to the finals, who are they going to face? Probably the Clippers, probably the Lakers, probably the Nuggets, and they all have some pretty good paint defense. So he really needs to add that shot if he really wants to win a chip.
Not to mention that this is the team of brothers. They got Robin and Brook Lopez, and they got Giannis's brother on the team as well. So that's just gonna be crazy. I mean, it's not really insane so to speak, but I feel like that's gonna do a lot for the chemistry. Just having that closeness, that family within, it's gonna do well. And I feel like a lot of people have been saying that the Bucks aren't gonna be what they were last year, but I mean, Giannis's work ethic is just incredible.
No, I think they're gonna be even better next year. This year,
better. I think Giannis he doesn't take anyone's crap, and he's gonna come out guns blazing and just kind of.
I mean, just look at the roster. I mean, even though they lost Brogdon, they still have Chris Middleton. He's an amazing number 2. He's proven, like, with Giannis Antetokounmpo that he's, a great 3-point shooter and a great sidekick. They have the Lopez twins, Brook and Robin Lopez. Brook Lopez is an amazing center. I'm a huge fan of his. And an amazing offensive and defensive player. And Robin Lopez is, which I'm seeing more of, he's getting more offensive also. He's adding more of a shot. He wants to be more like his twin brother. He's going to probably be posting on more, adding more of a mid-range shot. And I mean, also look at the guards that they have. Kyle Korver and Wesley Matthews. They're both 3-point threats. I mean, arguably one of the best. They're both arguably in the top of the 3-point players of the league. And also Wesley Matthews is an amazing defender. So I think that obviously I still think the Bucks are going to do a deep playoff run and that they have, great bench.
They're going to be top 2 in the East for sure.
For sure.
All right, next team.
So the next team is the Minnesota Timberwolves.
I don't really have much to say about these guys, bro.
I mean, with the Timberwolves, I think they might be able to make the playoffs really low if everything goes right for them. Yeah. I think that they might be 8th or 7th, maybe 6th seed. But I mean, Andrew Wiggins' player efficiency is decreasing. I mean, this is more of an advanced stat, but I was doing a little bit of research and I saw that Andrew Wiggins, his player efficiency rating was pretty low, was kind of low, and then Butler came in and it decreased.
Yeah.
So then a lot of people thought maybe when Butler leaves, he's going to have a bigger role, he's going to be a little bit better. And then when Butler left, it dropped even more. He's not proven to be an all-star, and he's been in the league for 5 years. He's getting paid $27 million a year. I think that Andrew Wiggins really needs to step it up this year. I think this may be kind of like a wake-up call for him where the team might tell him that he needs to either produce or get out. And I mean, even with having Karl Anthony Towns on the team, I still don't think that the Timberwolves can make such a deep run in the playoffs, but again, they're in the West.
Yeah, and the whole thing with Andrew Wiggins, I don't want to bad talk this kid because I feel like I have always been a fan of Andrew Wiggins, but just nothing's really much changed with this guy, and the clock is ticking. You know, he doesn't really have much time left, especially. And
Even though he's young, I mean,
yeah,
he doesn't have a lot of time left in the Timberwolves.
yeah, and even then, like it's the West. You know, he has to do something, and I like Karl Anthony Towns, but I don't feel like these guys play with enough sense of urgency, and this is one of those teams where it's like they could be a lot better than they actually are, but they just haven't broken through yet, and I feel like they should have had a long time ago.
And Jimmy Butler even called Karl Anthony Towns soft
Yeah.
while he was there. So, and I mean, even if you look at the team, with Andrew Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns, Robert Covington, Giorgio Dieng, Jeff Teague, Shabazz Napier, and Okogie. I mean, Okogie was an amazing defensive player. He had 1.2 steals per game. And I think he should start either in the small forward or the shooting guard next to Wiggins. I mean, I think Okogie's really going to be kind of Andrew Wiggins' band-aid and savior,
Yeah.
where he lacks in defense, Okogie's gonna produce in.
Yeah, well, honestly, I hope just they get things figured out because, like I said, there's not enough time for these guys until maybe Wiggins leaves or maybe even Karl Anthony Towns leaves eventually. But they need to figure something out, I think, and it's the West. They just can't keep being the way that they are.
So the next team is the New Orleans Pelicans.
So
They're gonna be a scary team, I think.
I honestly think so as well. I think this is one of those. Okay, so when the whole AD trade happened, a lot of people were saying, that the Lakers got robbed. I honestly think they did too. they got robbed big time. They got Lonzo. They got Brandon Ingram. They got Zion Williamson. It's gonna be one of those. It's gonna be. I wouldn't say that they're gonna have an amazing record. I mean, they're gonna have a good record, but I don't think they're gonna like be this huge powerhouse because it's still a relatively young team. But I feel like it's gonna be one of those teams. It's just a feel good team to watch, even if they're not winning. It's just one of those things that's history. Like we're gonna look back a couple years from now, like, damn, this was a really good team.
I think that for the Pelicans is gonna be a fresh restart. Getting obviously losing AD is a big hurt for them, but they wouldn't have done it if
They didn't know this was gonna be worth it.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, they're obviously in rebuild mode, but I think Lonzo Ball, Ingram, Zion Williamson, that's a really good. Those are three really good players, and they still have J.J. Redick, Jahlil Okafor, Etwan Moore, Drew Holiday, Josh Hart, Derek Favors. I mean,
This team is deep, man, and I feel like just Zion being surrounded by all these guys is gonna do so much for his game. And I mean, I've seen highlights already for the preseason game against the Hawks. Zion looks and he looks like he's ready to take on the league, and even the whole chemistry with Lonzo and Zion is going to be scary. I could already see the loss coming.
and I think Lonzo Ball's gonna get completely reinvented here in New Orleans. I think getting away from LA, getting away from his crazy ass dad, like he's just gonna be reinvented, and a big part of him, or a lot of the hype, a big part of the hype when he was coming into the league was his playmaking. How he's an amazing passer, and I think that just like you said, Lonzo Ball and Zion Williamson connection I think it's gonna be really special.
For sure, and not even just Lonzo, they still got Drew Holiday. They have just so much on this team that you know for the years to come, they're going to be one of those teams that you just don't want to mess with, and it's already starting to look like a great thing for New Orleans, and just the reinvention of this team is just amazing, I think.
So this year they're obviously not gonna make the playoffs,
Yeah.
but I think a couple of years down the line, maybe a couple more additions, we see how they play, their play style and everything. I think they're gonna be a really scary team.
Now, do you think that Zion is going to be Rookie of the Year this season? Do you think that just or does he have too much pressure, or do you think he's just going to coast the season? What do you think?
I have no idea. I mean, Zion Williamson for sure, I think is probably one of the most popular rookies since LeBron.
I agree.
I mean, he is like, and he plays a little bit like him too. He's obviously bigger and stronger, but I mean, he's explosive. He's a stud. He knows how to play basketball. I mean, he's proven it, and I just don't know. I mean, I hope he becomes the next LeBron. I'm excited for basketball for that. But Rookie of the Year, I don't know. I mean, I even think Tyler, like going back to the Heat, I even think Tyler Hero might be Rookie of the Year too. I think he has a good thing, but I mean, we'll talk about that next week when we talk about the awards. But I mean, Zion Williamson, Rookie of the Year potential, obviously, 100%. I mean, he's the number one pick. But I mean, so was Anthony Bennett. You know what I mean? But obviously, they're nothing close to each other. But I mean, the league is unpredictable, and one thing that we've seen, I mean, they've had Anthony Davis forever, and will the Pelicans maybe be the downside of Zion Williamson, or will their new team kind of reinvent themselves and kind of help him out? But that's something we'll see.
But yeah, that's true. But I feel like Anthony Davis never had Alonzo Ball. You know, he never had Brandon Ingram. So I feel like I said earlier, Zion getting surrounded by all of this is just going to be good for him coming into the league, and I'm just really excited to see what this team has to offer this season.
So next, the New York Knicks. I mean, I don't have much to say about them, but R.J. Barrett and Kevin Knox, they're really young hopefuls. I mean, R.J. Barrett's a stud also. Kevin Knox last year, he was decent, but I mean, just looking at their team, they have so much money into one position. You know what I mean? All their money is in their forwards. Just forwards. This is their team of just forwards. Taj Gibson, Morris, R.J. Barrett, Knox, Julius Randle, Wayne Ellington, Portis, Reggie Bullock. There's no minutes available. Those are all forwards. Those are all people that can play mainly the 3 and 4. Wayne Ellington is more of a shooting guard, and Reggie Bullock a little bit more too. He's a little bit more of a shooter, but I mean, that's so much money into just one position, and they have way too many people at the 2 and 4 from the 2 through 4, and their young players are just not going to get minutes, which is what they need. I mean, they're the New York Knicks, and they're not going to do good this year at all. But what they need to do is to see which of their young players can perform. And when you have, Taj Gibson, Morris, Julius Randle, Wayne Ellington, you don't have minutes to go around to your younger players. So what's going to happen to them? Are they going to be used less? Are they going to perform well? They're not, because they're not going to be playing minutes. They're not going to be playing into the system that they're being given.
Yeah. Honestly, I just feel bad for New York fans, bro. Knicks fans.
I mean, they thought they were going to get Kevin Durant, and instead they got 6 power forwards. So.
And they thought they were going to get Zion.
Yeah, which no. And I mean, also they only have 2 point guards on the team, Dennis Smith and Alfred Payton. Neither of them are superstars. Dennis Smith is athletic, and Alfred Payton proved to be a decent point guard in the Magic. But I mean, that's just nothing to be happy about or to be excited about. I think the Knicks are going to be one of the worst teams for sure.
I will say though, I am excited to see RJ play. I am excited to see what he's going to bring to the table. I feel bad for Knicks fans, but I mean, I don't know, maybe some miraculous miracle will happen, but I doubt it. It's New York at the end of the day.
I mean, the good thing is that they're in the East, so I mean, there's not as much competition, but even then, I still don't think they're gonna.
I mean, I just really hope that RJ and Knox develop into these studs. They are, but I just hope that they bring some sort of flair to the Knicks that maybe can attract other free agents there someday. But only time will tell with that.
So the next team, OKC Thunder. So obviously they traded away Westbrook and PG-13. They got Chris Paul. I mean, I'm not a big fan of. I mean, I love Chris Paul. I'm a big fan of Chris Paul, but I'm not a big fan of his contract. He has a huge contract. He's already old. But I mean, they have a pretty good roster. They have Gilgeous-Alexander, obviously CP3, Danilo Gallinari, Dennis Schroeder, Steven Adams, and Andre Robertson. Andre Robertson's a great defensive player, but I mean, even then, I still don't think that the Thunder can even make the playoffs with this team.
Yeah, I mean,
especially in the West.
No, yeah, it's just gonna be they're in total rebuild mode right now. And I honestly don't think. I mean, like you said, CP3's contract is a monster, but Um, I don't see him staying in OKC if something were to work out with him. But I don't know. It's just kind of one of those things where they're just in rebuild mode, and I think that they know that. So
One good thing about the Thunder is that even with these trades and stuff, they have 15 picks from 2020 to 2026.
yeah,
They're obviously not going to draft 15 players within the next 6 years. So, I mean, what I'm hoping for is that for the Thunder's sake, CP3 is a good band-aid right now. Maybe they can get a good point guard next year in the draft. I mean, the free agent class next year is not that good, but I mean, with those 15 picks, they can probably flip them and get a really good player for within the next year or two.
I agree. But I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like you don't know. That's just a big question mark at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not losing any faith in CP3 or Steven Adams or the Thunder organization, but I mean, it's gonna be really hard for them
Yeah.
to play well.
Yeah. So next team is the Orlando Magic. Um, they surprised me last season. I mean, they weren't amazing by any stretch of the matter, but they did make the playoffs, which was to me really surprising. And they they have the addition of
I mean, they have Markel Fultz.
exactly, and they have Mo Bamba, which we didn't see much of him last season due to injury. But I'm excited to see Markel Fultz play again.
Me too. I mean, I think I mean a lot of people are going into the hype with his new shot. I saw videos of it. It looks slow. I mean, I personally don't like it. I think he's gonna be a bust. I hope he's not. I saw a couple of plays from the preseason, and he had some really good some plays, and his shot was wet. I mean, he was making some really clean shots. It wasn't messy, but I don't know. I just don't have that much faith in Markel Fultz. I think the Sixers really messed him up,
Yeah.
like mechanic wise. But I mean, just the roster itself. Aaron Gordon, he's a stud. He's a mini Blake Griffin. Nikola Vucevic, one of my favorite centers in the league, super consistent offensively. Terrence Ross, Michael Carter Williams, Evan Fournier, Alfred Aminu. They're all good role players, but can they mesh well and win?
Yeah. And on like that's all with time, but I feel like to go back to the Markel Fultz thing, I honestly think that this could be a time where he can reinvent himself just like Lonzo. Like I see parallels within the two. For example, Lonzo in the sense that he was with the Lakers and the Lakers kind of in a sense messed him up because I feel like he was held back, especially everything that was going on. And looking at Markel with the whole Philly situation, I see similarities in their situations. So I really hope that Markel can use this opportunity to reinvent himself and just kind of build his game around the guys he's with. And they like you said, they have a great supporting cast, and I feel like Markel can actually make that jump to being the player that the player he was supposed to be in Philly. So that's something that I want to keep an eye out for.
And I mean, speaking of Philly, the next team, Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, they got Al Horford, who's going to be an amazing addition to the team. Obviously, I mean, he's a great offensive center, both scoring wise and passing wise. I mean, playmaking, he's a great center also. They added Josh Richardson.
Yeah.
I miss him.
I miss him already.
I hate that he left, but I mean, we got Butler.
Yeah.
So it's a win. I think it's a win-win in reality because Jimmy Butler didn't want to be in the Sixers anymore, and
Yeah.
Josh Richardson wasn't really being used to his full potential. So I mean, he had an amazing season. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I think he can really excel with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Length is their asset. I mean, they have a really tall team. I think defending is not going to be a problem for them.
Mhm.
But I think they need to play at a faster pace. They did play kind of slow last year, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I'm being a little pessimistic about them, but they're the 76ers. They're for sure going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to go deep.
Yeah. And I mean, I gotta talk about this. Ben Simmons adding a 3-point shot.
I don't know.
Like,
I mean, I hope it's reliable. I mean,
yeah.
that'll be great for the game and great for him.
No, yeah. I mean, obviously he's been showcasing it this summer, and he even made one yesterday.
And literally everybody in Philadelphia thought they won the NBA championship. I mean, like I saw videos of people at bars and they saw like Ben Simmons making one 3-point shot. I think they're overhyping it a little bit too much. I'm really happy he has a 3-point shot, but I mean he was wide open. He had like if it was in 2K he would have had like good coverage. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like someone was on top of him completely. There was defender there, but it was a wet shot. I mean his stroke looks really good, but I don't know. I mean, I really hope he can keep that. If he does keep that, that's insane. I mean, with Ben Simmons, like he's a playmaker. He drives it in, and if he can shoot it now,
I mean, not only that, if he were to add a three pointer to his arsenal, you got Tobias Harris, you got Josh Richardson who can shoot pretty well, and you know, to add Ben Simmons to that list, that's they even have James Ennis too as well, and he's a pretty good shooter as well. But that I feel like this is one of those teams that's going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals this year for sure, without a doubt. I feel like
for sure, I think it's gonna be Bucks and
Bucks and Sixers, and Joel Embiid is going to have a monster season. Without a doubt, I feel like what happened to him and that Toronto series, seeing him cry like that, I said it the moment it happened that he's going to come back this season with a chip on his shoulder and he's just going to wreak havoc on the league.
And I mean, especially being a little bit healthier, he's probably gonna play more minutes. He's not gonna be on as much minute restriction as he was historically. But I mean, even though last year he played more than 30 minutes a game, which is a really good usage. But I think that he's gonna play a lot more confidently, a lot more aggressively too. And I mean, Joel Embiid can also shoot the three if he needs to. So I think that's just insane. Also, I mean, being a 7-footer and being able to do that, even with Horford too. I mean, Horford could shoot too.
Yeah, like even I don't know. I'm just looking at the team and they're gonna be scary.
Let's go on to the next team, the Phoenix Suns. Devin Booker. I feel like Devin Booker's been in the league for a while, and he's only 22 years old. He is a young scoring god. I mean, he's an amazing scorer and playmaker. Defensively, he kind of needs to work a little bit, but I think adding Ricky Rubio to that team, which I was a big fan of Ricky Rubio when he was in the Timberwolves with Kevin Love. That's why I love Kevin Love and Ricky Rubio so much, just because of that duo. But I think with Ricky Rubio coming in and being, Ricky Rubio is really close to being a true point guard where he's completely playmaking. He's an amazing playmaker. I think that's going to take the edge off of Devin Booker playmaking wise, so that way he can focus more on the defensive end of the court.
Yeah, and the only like even the I'm excited to see how DeAndre Ayton is gonna play the season. I actually like him a lot, and he's still relatively young, but he has a lot of potential. And
I mean, he averaged 16 points and 10 rebounds last year, and he didn't have a point guard.
Yeah.
A real point guard. I mean, the real point guard last year was Devin Booker. So just imagine with Ricky Rubio, I think that can also be another kind of CP3, DeAndre Jordan kind of feel. I mean, he is a huge guy. He is a dominant player in the post, and I think he's going to be a really good player this year, especially with that point guard.
Yeah, and I even forgot that they even had Tyler Johnson. They acquired him last year, and I feel like there's just one of those teams where I feel like they're starting to get a feel of who they actually are. The first couple of seasons with Devin Booker, it just kind of looked like one big question mark. But I feel like now they're starting to get a grasp of who they have to be as a team. And I feel like I don't see them making the playoffs, but they're in the right direction, I would say.
Now, do you think that Devin Booker is going to be the next Anthony Davis in terms of superstar talent, shitty organization?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I feel like Devin Booker, he's one of those guys where he has the potential to be this insane player to win a championship, but I don't see him doing it with the Suns. Unless they acquire this really incredible talent.
Even that alone sounds weird.
Yeah.
Like championship with the Suns.
It's not gonna happen. it's not gonna happen. But I feel like Devin Booker is just one of those guys, and I feel like if they don't, kind of the same situation with the Minnesota Timberwolves. The clock is ticking with them, and eventually I feel like he's gonna get fed up and he's just gonna get out of there. Whether it, nowadays, player empowerment's a big thing, so he could just easily be like, I don't want to be here anymore, and then a couple months pass by and he's out. But I'm excited to see them this season. I really like DeAndre Ayton. I like Tyler Johnson. You know, Ricky Rubio as well.
I miss Tyler Johnson too.
I miss him as well. And they're gonna be one of those teams where we'll see what happens with them. But like I said, they're not gonna make the playoffs, but they're in the right direction. If they could keep doing things like this, it's gonna be a good outcome, I think.
So the next team, the Portland Trailblazers.
Thank you for taking Hassan Whiteside away from us.
Do you think Hassan Whiteside can still be motivated? I mean, do you think he could be motivated in the Trailblazers? I mean, he wasn't motivated at all with the Heat. I feel like he just got paid and left mentally.
Honestly, I don't think Damian is gonna take any of his shit. I think that Damian Lillard, just it's not Miami. This is a different monster. I want to say that I want Hassan Whiteside to succeed with the Portland Trailblazers because on paper they look good, but I mean his work ethic is just shit.
I think what's gonna happen is that, I mean, without a doubt, no matter what, Hassan Whiteside's an amazing low post defender.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of the best shot blockers. He's that's just his bread and butter. But I think a big part of why they got him was to replace Nurkic because he's injured. Mm-hmm. And I think what's going to happen is that Hassan Whiteside's going to have a really good year. He's going to play well. He's going to play really good alongside Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. He's going to accept the fact that he's not going to be the number one option, obviously. He wasn't even the number one option here, but he was mad about that. But I think he knows that with Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum that's their team. They're the studs there. But I think what's going to happen is that when Nurkic comes back, then Hassan Whiteside is going to go back to his egotistical diva ways where he's just not going to perform well, he's not going to be motivated, and he's just kind of going to drop the ball again. Not even drop the ball, he's going to purposely just kind of mentally check out.
And it's sad, unfortunately, because I consider myself one of the biggest Whiteside apologists. You know this? Especially when he was with
Me too. I mean, I loved him his first 2 years.
Yeah, and then he just kind of let us down. And even then, it's just kind of like that relationship you keep defending, and you just know it's not going anywhere. That's what Whiteside is. But I mean, look, even though he did what he did with Miami, I really hope he develops into what he's supposed to be. I honestly think he has the potential to be up there with Joel Embiid. His work ethic just doesn't match with it at all.
And I mean, even just mentally checking out, he still averaged 12 and 11.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I think he's going to be I think he's still a good addition to the Portland Trailblazers. It's just that, is he going to get a lot of minutes? I mean, he played 23 minutes per game last year with the Heat. And when Nurkic comes back, Nurkic was a huge part of the offense. I mean, and the only difference between Nurkic, not the only difference, but one big difference between Nurkic and Hassan Whiteside is that Nurkic is an amazing playmaker, where Hassan Whiteside is not. Hassan Whiteside doesn't get any assists. He doesn't pass the ball. He's more of a traditional center.
Yeah, and he apparently when he was with the Heat, there was word that Spo wasn't letting him shoot the three. So maybe he can incorporate that into his game, and maybe he can showcase that he does have 3-point potential and can be this stretch four. Who knows? But I am really enough rooting for Whiteside, even though he did kind of screw us over in a sense. But
I mean, I do remember him working on his mid-range shot, and yeah. I mean, just seeing him in practices, like when he was practicing and even in games, his shot looked good, and he was able to, he did a lot of those bank shots, off the backboard, and I think if he can kind of get that back, then that will really offset the difference between his talent or at least offset the change of pace for him replacing Nurkic.
Yeah. And like I have to ask, do you think he's gonna go off on us when we go against the Blazers? Do you think he's gonna have a big game?
That's a good question. I haven't even thought about that.
Honestly, I feel like
I think he will just because of his ego, and he wants to prove to us that he's doing good. But I think that maybe Bam Adebayo might kind of become super explosive in that game and show. Obviously, I don't think Bam Adebayo is at the level of defense that Hassan Whiteside was. Not yet, but his offense is insane. He's insanely more athletic, and especially with adding, I mean, I know we're on the Trailblazers, but with adding Tyler Hero and Jimmy Butler, and I think Bam Adebayo is gonna really perform good in that game.
Yeah.
So the next team, the Sacramento Kings. I mean, I don't have much to say about the Sacramento Kings.
I do.
What are you gonna say, bro?
I mean, they have one of the best players in Harrison Barnes.
I fucking hate Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes is the reason that LeBron got his ring in Cleveland. Even though I'm glad LeBron got his ring in Cleveland, I'm glad he went home and he brought it. Harrison Barnes played so horrible that finals. He is literally the reason why the Warriors lost that year. And I'm glad that we have a podcast now so I can tell everybody in the world my thoughts on that. But I mean, other than Harrison Barnes, all that aside,
De'Aaron Fox, man.
I mean, De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield. I mean, they're great shooters, and I think they could really prove to be a really good backcourt. I mean, Fox shot 37.1% from the three, and is probably the fastest player in the league now. He's consistently improving his shot, and Hield is becoming one of the better three-point shooters in the league. Also, I mean, offensively, they're killing. I think they're gonna kill it this year.
Yeah. And not only that, they added Trevor Ariza, which is a great vet to have.
He is.
He did really great things with the Rockets, and I feel like being paired up with Fox, that's just gonna be dynamic, and just their roster is just really gritty, really young, and I'm excited to see where this goes. And I believe they have their coach is Luke Walton, which is a really good coach.
I have a lot of faith in him. A lot of people don't.
Yeah. I do. I just feel like Luke Walton got a taste of the LeBron effect. So
For sure. But I think that's all LeBron's fault. I mean,
Yeah.
like LeBron is just he goes into teams and he tears them apart, gets whatever
yeah.
literally gets whatever coach he can boss around, and Luke Walton just proved that he wasn't one of those.
But I mean, even if you think back and look back to when the Warriors didn't have Steve Kerr at that one point and Luke Walton took over, he did a really good job, and I feel like
I mean, Luke Walton, a lot of people forget, the 73-9 Golden State Warriors was coached by Luke Walton. Half the year, or maybe 3/4 of the year, I don't remember. I don't know how long it was, but I mean, he obviously had a big part of that. I mean, you can't just obviously when you have Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green on the same team, it's not hard to go 73-9. But Luke Walton for sure had a big part of it, and I have a lot of faith in Luke Walton. I think he's a good coach.
yeah, and I think this team, honestly, I think they could be an eighth seed. I think they could be they can be an eighth seed in the West.
I think they can.
Yeah.
mean, the only thing with the West is that there's just so much talent. I personally don't think they will make the playoffs, but I think they have the potential of making the playoffs.
Oh.
And especially with Dwayne Dedman, I mean, he's a good rebounder with a lot of upside, and adding Bogdanovich, he also has a lot of potential. So I don't know. I mean, even Marvin Bagley had a solid season last year with averaging 14.9 points and 7.6 rebounds. That's really great for a young player. But contract-wise, I mean, even Harrison Barnes' contract is 4 years, $94 million. That's a lot of money for him. I mean, I just don't have. I mean, I hate Harrison Barnes. I don't have a lot of faith in him, but I don't know. I think the Kings are definitely have been in rebuild mode for a really long time. They've had a lot of tough breaks, but I mean, I think they have the potential of making the playoffs. But then again, I mean, it's the NBA. A lot of teams have the potential of making the playoffs, and when you're in the West, that's even less of a chance.
Yeah, and I don't know. I like the Kings. That's that team that I'm excited to watch this season. And in terms of just, I really like De'Aaron Fox. He's one of my favorite players currently in the league. So that's a team that I'm definitely going to keep an eye out. And with the addition of Luke Walton, that's just only going to do so much for his game.
So the next team, the San Antonio Spurs. I mean, I'm just going to say off the bat, they're going to make the playoffs. I'm never going to count them out of the playoffs. I mean, Greg Popovich is a coaching legend, a coaching god. And, I mean, having Aldridge, DeRozan, DeMar Carroll, Marco Bellinelli, Rudy Gay, Trey Lyles, Patty Mills, DeJounte Murray, Jacob Polt, I don't even know how to say his name, Poelt?
It doesn't matter. It's Popovich we're talking about.
I mean, they have an amazing team. They're obviously, like, a lot of people say that they're the New England Patriots of the NBA. I don't take that. I think the Patriots are the San Antonio Spurs of the NFL. The San Antonio Spurs have been doing it way longer.
I feel like you could just, I mean, people don't really look at this, but Popovich is such a great coach that, I mean, if you look at every year, you just give him any player, and he'll just adjust
The system, yeah.
and just makes the playoffs regardless. So, I feel like they kind of underachieved last season in a sense. They were a bit quiet. They weren't too loud, but I feel like, but then again, that's the Spurs for you. They're not really that team that is always going to be in the headlines, but will sneak into the playoffs regardless. But I feel like they will make the playoffs, and DeMar DeRozan's second year with them, he's only going to get better.
For sure. And I mean they were the seventh seed last year, and I think they can probably stay around that range, maybe go up to 6 and maybe 5. If they just make a couple of little tweaks here and there in the system. But I mean, it's Greg Popovich. LaMarcus Aldridge is a reliable player. DeMar DeRozan had a good year last year, so I honestly wouldn't put it past any of them.
Yeah.
So the next team, the Toronto Raptors.
Defending champs. I don't know what to say about these guys.
I mean, Pascal Siakam, I have a lot of faith in him.
No, yeah, Pascal Siakam definitely became one of my favorite players of last season, and he is definitely one of my favorite power forwards coming into the season, and I feel like he can only get better, and he is just one of those guys that just plays with all of his heart, and they did lose Kawhi Leonard
And Danny Green.
but I like Nick Nurse as a coach. I like him a lot.
I think he did a really good job last year. I mean, like being his first year and kind of like going to the finals. Obviously, Kawhi Leonard had a lot to do with it, but Pascal Siakam, he had a crazy year last year. He averaged 16.9 points, 7 rebounds, 3.1 assists, almost a steal a game. He averaged 0.9 steals a game and 0.7 blocks. He's a stat sheet stuffer, you know what I mean? And that was his third year in the league. He's a young player. Kawhi Leonard's not there anymore. They're going to look to him to be a really big part of the offense and defense. And I just think he's going to explode this year. And even with in terms of the Raptors, with Gasol and Ibaka, they're just staples in their position. I mean, they've been big names in their positions for the past years, and they're both amazing at scoring and defending the ball all around. So,
and I know Kyle Lowry gets a lot of scrutiny considering his playoff performances, but I feel like with that championship experience that he has now, even if he's just a good presence in the locker room, and that's going to be really good for Pascal Siakam. And just moving forward, I feel like they're still going to be a scary team to face. I mean, the Air Canada Center is just one of those arenas that no matter who they're facing, they will give them hell. But they've always been one of those teams, even before Kawhi Leonard, even before the championship, that they're just a really hard playing team till the end. So they're always a top 4 seed in the East, and I feel like they're gonna make the playoffs regardless.
For sure, yeah, they're for sure gonna make the playoffs, and they also have Stanley Johnson, who's a good defensive player also. Mm-hmm. So let's go on to the next team, the Utah Jazz.
Now this team got really good. Really.
And they've been good too.
They've been good, but they've added Mike Conley. That in itself is really big. But
even like with Mike Conley, they only had to give up Grayson Allen and Kyle Korver.
Yeah.
And a couple other players, but I mean they lost Kyle Korver, Grayson Allen, Baisley, Jay Crowder, who I love defensively, and Derek Favors, who just really didn't even mesh well with the Jazz anyway next to Gobert.
Yeah, and even then, they even got a veteran in Jeff Green, and I like Jeff Green a lot.
I love Jeff Green. I mean, just look at their team. They have an extremely solid and talented team. They have Dante Exum, Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, Emmanuel Mudiay, Joe Ingles, Bogdanovich, and Jeff Green.
Yeah.
That's a solid team.
And adding these guys takes a lot of the weight off of Donovan Mitchell. I feel like, I wouldn't say it's an issue, but one of the things that kind of kept them from progressing is that just all of this weight was on such a young star, and now this is going to be the first time where he can just not have to worry as much. And even if you remember his first season, he led the Utah Jazz to the second round, and that was an accomplishment on its own. But now he's finally going to have the chance to play alongside these vets, and I feel like Donovan Mitchell is going to have a really good year this year, playing alongside Mike Conley.
I think he's just going to keep improving every year, and even Rudy Gobert. I mean, Rudy Gobert is even scoring more. Last year he averaged 16 points, almost 13 rebounds, and 2.3 blocks. He's just a monster, Rudy Gobert. And then Derek Favors proved that, Derek Favors is a great talent, but he just didn't play well alongside Gobert, just different play styles. But it was a good move for them to get rid of Favors, and they even signed on Ed Davis, who can really help fill that gap from Derek Favors, so it's not even that much of a loss.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're getting rid of a guy that doesn't play good in your system, or, like, not to take anything away from Derek Favors, he's a great player, but he didn't play good in their system, and they added someone that's probably going to still play good and has a lot of the important things that Derek Favors had. I think they really made a good addition with that, and that they're for sure gonna make the playoffs, and I think they're gonna go really deep.
Yeah, and I really like Joe Ingles as well. He's probably one of my favorites on this team.
Yeah.
A good stretch for it, and I feel like in a way these guys just became the new Spurs, if that makes sense. They don't have these really big names, but they're gonna be a powerhouse.
But they're all reliable players.
Yeah. Which is scary.
So let's finish it off with the last team, the Washington Wizards, who may even be also arguably one of the worst teams in the league. Also,
I think they're probably I think they're not even. They're gonna be in the bottom three for sure in the East.
So Wall has a torn Achilles. He's probably not gonna come back this year.
Which is unfortunate because I love me some John Wall.
Yeah, I love John Wall. And I mean, it's super weird because earlier when we were talking about De'Aaron Fox saying that he's the fastest player in the league, I remember when John Wall was the fastest player in the league. I remember when we were watching John Wall and he was just like going up and down the court insanely. Like he was super athletic. And now with these injuries, like back to back, I mean, what does that mean for his play style? Is he still gonna be the same John Wall?
I don't know. That's the big question mark. But I feel like just over the last couple of seasons, this team slowly but surely has lost their identity. I remember when, the Wizards were, a good, I wouldn't say a contender, but they were a pretty, gritty team, and now it's just kind of like they just deteriorated into this weird identity that you look at this team and it's like, who are they? And John Wall out, Bradley Beal possibly is leaving as well. Who knows?
I think he is leaving. I mean, he has until October 21st to sign his extension. I don't think he's going to sign it. And I really want him to come to Miami. I just don't know how he's going to come. Like, trade-wise, I don't know how he's going to come. I think we're going to have to get him in free agency, but that's going to be in a while.
Yeah. I mean, I just look at this roster, and it's just kind of all over the place. I don't know.
I mean, Ian Mahinmi has proven to be a good center. CJ Miles is a decent player. Ish Smith is a decent backup point guard, but I mean, just a ton of decent people is not good. One person I love on the team, Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, and I feel like Isaiah Thomas has gone through this kind of weird limbo lately in his career where he's kind of lost himself as well.
And I don't think people give him credit.
No, they don't, and I feel really bad for the guy. He did it first and foremost. He didn't deserve what happened to him in Boston.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
got blindsided there, and just ever since then he's just kind of been in
his
this
sister
loop.
died, and then he goes the next day and scores an insane amount of points in a playoff game, and then that offseason they get rid of him. Like, that's just...
Yeah, and I'm rooting for Isaiah Thomas. I really don't know maybe on this squad. I don't really see him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think he'll excel. I think he has amazing potential. I have nothing but faith in Isaiah Thomas, but I think the only downside to him is nothing about him. It's the team he's on. And I think that's what's going to be the kind of like the downfall of his reputation. But hopefully, I do think that Isaiah Thomas still has the mindset and the talent to maybe show everybody that he still has what it takes.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he has been jumping from team to team, but if he could prove that he's an amazing player on the Wizards, hopefully he could just jump one more time and just find a home somewhere where he can end his career next year, I think. I mean, I don't want him to be staying on this team and just rebuilding and not making the playoffs. I love Isaiah Thomas. I want him to make the playoffs and to really be in a contender.
Yeah, me too. And, I mean, like I said, it's really unfortunate that John Wall is out. He's one of my favorite point guards, but it's just one of those things where this team is just falling apart, and I don't see by the beginning of next season, I don't see this team being anywhere close to where it is now.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. That's A through Z.
A through Z, man.
All NBA teams for this year, for the 2019-2020 season. I mean, the season starts October 22nd. I'm super excited.
No, and honestly, I haven't been this excited for an NBA season in a very long time. It's just it's up for grabs, and I know it's been getting said a lot, but it's true, and I'm finally basketball's back.
Basketball is back, and we'll be back next week. Next week, stay tuned. We're going to be talking about who we think are going to win the season awards. So who's going to win MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Most Improved, Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year. Who do we think is going to make the conference finals? Who do we think might make the finals? I mean, it's going to be next week's episode is going to be good. So just stay tuned, and thanks for listening, guys.
All right, later.